Hey! Welcome to our Georgia suburban homestead. I'm making a video today on straw bale gardening as requested last night on a live chat with Black's Tropical Homestead. So Bobby, this one's for you and for your followers. It's going to be kind of a crash course, but we will get through it. All right, when we're starting our straw bale garden, and I should probably tell you that it is our favorite way to build soil and start a garden. When it's started properly and the straw is treated properly, things will thrive. You'll be absolutely amazed at what you can do with the straw bale garden. I do not recommend it for root crops. That's radishes, potatoes, carrots, turnips, anything that forms a bulb under the surface. You don't want to do that until the straw has been breaking down for at least over a season, and then it's loose and it's better. But first thing that comes to mind are questions as, what is straw? A lot of people don't realize that straw is different from hay. This is alfalfa, which we'll do another video on alfalfa as a compost, which is excellent for adding nitrogen. But a bale of this is not what you need, okay? And that's green and it smells wonderful. This is hay. Alfalfa, hay. You notice how small the strands are, like grass strands, and they're very, very narrow. This is not what you want. Hay is for feeding animals. Alfalfa is for feeding animals. It's not straw. Straw is animal bedding. So really observe, okay? You see how small that is and how fine. Straw, on the other hand, if you come in close, Charlie, you notice is thicker and drier. And this is typically used for bedding for livestock. It is hollow. The reason they call it straw is, you see, it's got a hollow stem to it. So you need to find straw, a bale of straw. Now, in sourcing your straw, it's going to be extremely important to find naturally grown straw. And by that I mean straw that comes from a field that has not been treated with an herbicide or a pesticide. Unfortunately, a number of years ago, the University of Florida, IFAS, did a study on broadleaf herbicides. And a lot of horse people expect their straw to be clean, which means they don't want to see other plant material in their straw bale. So the University of Florida did a study on a chemical that kills the broadleaf or anything but straw in a field. Unfortunately, that stays in the straw, and a lot of the straw growers and farmers across the country are now using it to produce clean straw, intended for animal bedding, not for growing in. Because what happens is a lot of that chemical gets saved in the straw bale, and after you've cooked it and you've put your soil on top of it, unfortunately the herbicide is still in the bale. So you'll plant your plants and they'll grow, and you'll get all excited because they look great, and then all of a sudden they start turning colors on the margins of the leaves. They curl up and they die. Why? Because the straw bale, the roots have now gotten down into the straw bale and they're absorbing the herbicide. So you need to find local growers or a country store that can tell you what the farmer has used. And instead of saying, hey, have they used chemical, they're going to tell you, oh no, there's no chemical there. What you ask is, hey, what kind of herbicide does your grower use on his field? And if they say, oh, they're not using herbicide, well, you can tell by looking at the bale it's not going to be just pure straw. You're going to have some weeds in there. He's not using herbicide, then grab those bales. A lot of your backyard farmers won't use the herbicides. So if you notice, if you go out into the countryside and you see people cutting hay or cutting straw and rolling it in those big round bales, pull over and ask them, hey, do you have any straw in a bale form that I can buy? That's really what you need. don't go to Lowe's, don't go to Home Depot, because their straw is clean straw and you won't be able to grow much in it. When you get your bale, a lot of balers when they harvest will, when they cut the straw at the ground level, they'll fold the straw over and it gets pushed into the baling machine, which means you're going to have an upside and a downside. So you're going to look through your bale and turn it around until you can find the majority of the straw that I just showed you. Looks like straw standing up with the holes running down. And that's the side you're going to place up that you're going to work with, okay? So get your bales, figure out which is the upside for you. This particular farmer mixed it up. So we've got some up and some down, and it's just going to be a matter of deciding which has more up. It looks pretty evenly spaced. And you're going to want to position these in your garden where they're going to be, because once they get wet, you're not moving it. It's, you know, heavy, okay? So if my husband will come over and shoot the top of this bale down at this angle, you notice some of these pieces of straw are running parallel and some are coming up. So this is probably the edge that we will use. I don't like to use the flat side. I yet like to use the thin side because it's more apt to have straw on the way up. I also want you to notice, see how tight this bale is? See? You can't get your fingers in it. By the time it's done processing, you'll be able to sink your hand right into that bale, and I'll show you a bale that we've been cooking for a couple of months that's already cooked and soft, and I'll show you that as well. What do we use to cook the bale? Most of you are familiar by now with the three numbers that are on the bags of fertilizer. It's the first number represents nitrogen, which is the number you're looking for. The second number represents phosphorus, and the last number represents potassium. To process your bale, you're looking for very strong nitrogen. Okay? It's called the scale is NPK. You're looking for high N numbers. N is in Nancy, okay? So some experts will tell you that you need to use something that's called mylogranate, and that has a higher nitrogen number than anything else in it, and it has other micronutrients. I don't like to use it because it's actually a derivative of sludge, which is human waste. And when you process anything from humans, you're going to get traces of, here we are talking traces again when we're talking about the herbicide traces remaining in the bale. Well, anything that's processed from human waste is going to have traces of whatever medications they've been on. So your plants don't need Prozac, okay? So we can't get pure ammonium nitrate anymore thanks to Tim McVeigh, the American terrorist who blew up the Oklahoma City buildings, okay? All right, so now what we buy is urea, which is what chickens produce. It's extremely hot, which means it will burn your plants in high concentrations. But right now we want to burn. So I do go to Home Depot for this, and I get a bag of 34-0-0. And what does that tell us? It's got a high nitrogen content. Sometimes your country feed stores you can get 42 or 46-0-0. The thing you have to watch out for is it can't be a weed and feed, okay? No herbicide, just pure nitrogen, okay? So look at the bag, because some will say weed and feed. You don't want that. You want just the pure nitrogen, and this is what it looks like. You see that? That's 34-0-0. From Home Depot. It's in a white bag with green numbers on it. The prices are shooting up right now. So the best time to buy it if you're going to do this on large scale is in the fall when they're winding down their garden department. In the spring they'll jack the prices up. So, and you can start your straw bale any time of year. but right now it's heading into spring, and it's perfect time for first-timers to start this, so they're not disappointed with some of the science of it, okay? And the warmer the ambient air temperature is, the faster the bale's going to process. Now, some people say you only do this for a few days or a few weeks. It's all going to depend on temperature. And I'll show you that when we get these bales to the backyard, and we'll talk about the next step. For you people who are purists and want to go strictly organic, you can use blood meal to process your bales. But when you use the nitrate, the urea, all you're going to do is use half a cup per bale per treatment. Whereas if you use blood meal, you're going to use 3 cups per bale per treatment. And you'll see, if you look at the prices and what you're going to spend, you'll see just how expensive that is. And just as a caveat, if you're a vegan and you're part of the vegan movement and the organic movement, why would you use blood meal and bone meal? That comes from the animals. So if you're trying to avoid animal proteins as a statement for animal rights, then using blood meal and bone meal is kind of against your principle. So we're back to the pelleted urea. Hey, welcome back. We have the bales positioned now in this garden that we have, if Charlie will pan over. We've got a Nanking cherry. It's a Nanking cherry and a Satsuma orange. This is an experiment to see if it would live here through the winter. And as you see, it's withstood low 20s, upper teens. Looks like it's going to be fine. And then another Nanking cherry. If he shows us down here in the bed that they're in, this is one of our original straw bale gardens that we put in 2014. And it started out with the bales this high above the edges. They start out high like this, and then in just a season or two, they break down to this much nice, beautiful soil that you see here. So if you do just a frame, a simple frame, these are fence pickets that are, 2022, so 2014 to 20 is 6 years, 7, 8. This is what it looks like in 8 years, and the fence pickets are still going strong this many years into it. So we start out with the bales with the majority of the open straw facing upward to the sky. Okay? So your equipment at this point is very simple. You're going to need a soil thermometer. Now this is a worm compost thermometer, but anything with a scale on the end of it and a long stem is what you're going to need, okay? Then you're going to want either an open calendar or draw squares on a sheet of paper. So this is squares drawn on paper, or you can just do a list if you're more organized than I am. Get your measuring cup. I use a plastic one in the garden. And a bucket of your high nitrogen fertilizer, okay? So just out of curiosity, because it's not going to show temperature change yet, we'll put today's date. It's what, the 28th? No. 26th?
Give me a second.
During February 26th, I put that in the upper corner of my sheet of paper.
26.
And what I do is I'll record the ambient air temperature, and I'm going to record what the bale is. And to get the bale temperature, all you need, and look how hard this is to get in here. Put your thermometer in there, and in a second it's going to tell us what the temperature is inside this bale. .61 degrees. Okay, I'm going to say it's like 60 out here now. So today's temperature is about 60. The ambient air temperature around us, and the Bale is like 61, so it's about the same. Now every day you're going to come out and take your temp while you're new at this and record your temp. What temperature is the outside air? What temperature is it inside the Bale? The standard for the granulated urea is half a cup per bale, and I'll show you how to scatter it. So this will go both these bales. You just scatter it on the top. Now I like to keep my granulated nitrogen in the garden in a bucket so it doesn't get wet. It's just easier than hauling that 50-pound sack around. Then your next step is to thoroughly water this in. There we go. Now the pelleted or the nodules of nitrogen fertilizer is highly water soluble, which makes it ideal for treating your bale. And you just squirt it until you no longer really see the little round balls, which is going to be soaking that bale. And again, they were light when we put them in here. And now that they're going to be heavy, they'll weigh, Charlie, how much would you say they weigh wet?
Probably 35 dry, and then when you wet them, they're probably near 100.
Yeah, so put them in place before you treat them. Otherwise, you're going to be really, really upset if you try to move them. Not something I can do with my back. Okay, some websites or books you'll read will tell you to do this for a certain number of days, but what I've seen left out a lot of that literature is it all really depends on bale temperature and the ambient air temperature. So the colder it is outside, the longer it's going to take for processing. So when you start out doing this, you're going to want to apply your fertilizer every day. Water it in every day. Record your temperatures. Rule of thumb in the cooler temps, maybe a week, 5 to 7 days straight, you're going to water and fertilize and record your temperatures. And what you'll start to see is the temperature inside the bale start to go up. It'll go up and up and up. When I've done this in the warmer temperatures, I've exceeded 120 degrees in the bale. And this is good. Don't freak out, because it's killing the seed that you don't want in there. If, let's say it was the bales up front that we did, the highest days were upper 30s, lower 40s, and the inside of the bales peaked at 70 degrees. It still killed the seed off. So when you start seeing that temperature going all the way to the top, you can go to every other day with your fertilizer and your watering. And you'll do that for a week, every other day, a week to 10 days. Again, you're monitoring your temperature. You see the temperature start to come back down. It'll crest, and then it'll come back down. And when it starts to come back down rapidly, then you'll go to every third day for like 3 or 4 times, and then you stop with the fertilizer, and you still monitor your temperature until the temperature inside the bale agrees with the temperature of the outside air. At that point, you're ready to put a little bit of soil on top. Now hopefully you've got a compost pile going, and you can mix a third compost with a third something like Pro Mix and a third of the straw. Well, your straw is going to be the bale, okay? So 1-to-1 Pro Mix or garden soil to compost, and then all you're going to do is you come over to your bale and you just put it on the top of the bale till it's about 2-3 inches thick. Okay? Water that down. You don't have to add anything else to that. Water it down, stick your hand down through the soil into that straw, and you just pull it aside. It's going to be soft as butter. And plant your plants right in the bale. Of our first bale garden, we had Scotch bonnet in a bed that was this size. That's over here now. It has strawberries in it, but the Scotch bale was the Scotch bonnet was almost as tall as Charlie. It was like a huge plant, but I've never seen peppers thrive like they thrived in the straw bale garden. What did we also grow? Tomatoes, cabbage. Of course, you're starting out early in the year now with your greens, which is going to take advantage of the high nitrogen in these bales. If you top dress with compost, you shouldn't have to use any other type of fertilization. Now, what are the advantages? The straw will retain moisture, so you don't have to water it as much. It breaks down over time and creates soil. And as you see, here we are 8 years later, and we've got beautiful soil that the straw bale is sitting on. But the plants have eaten the soil to the point where we need to rebuild some soil. So these bales, when they break down, should fill 3/4 of this bed, and then we'll come up with another solution for whatever they don't cover. But this bed has turned into a fruit tree environment, and then I'll plant probably zinnia and calendula and basil underneath them as companion plants and pollinator attractors. So that's really the basics. You need to source your straw and make sure it's not been treated or grown in a field that has herbicide. You need a high nitrogen fertilizer, 1/2 cup per bale if you're using the granulated high water soluble, or 3 cups of fish emulsion, or blood meal actually has a higher nitrogen, which it's going to be pricey. A thermometer, something to write a record of your temperatures down, and water. So you can take up to 3 or 4 weeks to cook a bale. Sometimes when it's a warmer weather, we've had it processed and very, very quickly. Again, the temperature will spike. When it starts to come back down, it's done cooking. When you start seeing little mushrooms come up, that tells you that you have a good ecology going on in the bale. It's a good thing when you see mushrooms. Don't freak out and go, ah, you know. But if you have other things planted and the mushrooms are still coming up, you may want to go out and knock those down before the end of the day, because when they release their spores, it comes out as a black coating on your vegetables, and that can choke the vegetables because it keeps the sun from reaching them. So when we have things planted and the mushrooms continue to come up, we go out and knock them down. Okay? I hope you learned something today. I hope you like what you learned. Hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see something else, let me know in the comments. Okay? See ya!